Hi, I'm Michelle and this is Michmash. Today I'm filming my February wrap-up. These are the books that I read in February. I started off strong in February. I read a few books at the beginning, but then I got into a major reading slump. I just got really busy. My boyfriend and I started looking at houses, and that can kind of take over your life. So I didn't have time to read or go to the gym, and just pretty much got out of all my normal routines, which is really bad. So I'm hoping in March I will get back into things. But I read 5 books, or 4 books and a play, so I'm going to let you know what I read. The first book I read in February was Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. I started this in January but finished it a few days into February. This is the 3rd book in the Mistborn trilogy, and I had read the first 2 books about a year ago, and finally finished the series, which I was really happy about. Although he has since written more books that are in this world, but in this actual trilogy, this is the final one. I really liked it, but I didn't like it as much as the first 2, I think. I found that it was a lot slower, and that may have just been because I took so much time in between reading the 2nd and 3rd book, so I wasn't as engrossed in the world or the story, which is too bad. I probably should have just read it right after reading the first 2. It actually kind of surprised me that this would be the slowest one. I thought there was going to be so much more happening in the last book, but it seemed to take its time. Zadie, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he is one of the characters who studies religion in the world, and he goes through a crisis of faith basically in this book, and so a lot of the book deals with him researching all the different religions and discovering what he believes and what he doesn't believe, and that was interesting, but it just felt really different from the first 2 books, and I was a little bit disappointed in that. So I don't know, I think the first 2 had been 5-star reads for me, and this was a 3.5 for me. The next book I got out of the library is called The Night Guest by Fiona Macfarlane. And I just picked it up at the library totally on a whim. I'd never heard of it before. And the author is Australian. And this book follows this woman who's an elderly woman living by herself named Ruth. She wakes up in the middle of the night one night and she's convinced there's a tiger in her living room. And she calls her son, and he kind of laughs at her, and obviously there's not a tiger in your living room. And then the next day, this woman, this government caretaker comes, starts to help her out and cleans her house, takes care of her, and they develop a friendship. And so it kind of follows their relationship, and also just this woman's life as she becomes more and more, she's getting dementia, and it ended up being quite a sad story. I don't want to give anything away. It just made me think about how we treat our parents, and I think in other cultures people are a lot more willing to do anything for their parents when they get old, and in our independent North American society it's more like that is such a burden and we don't really want to have to do that, so we'll just put them in a care home and let someone else take care of it, and that can just be really sad sometimes, and we really need to take better care of our parents because they took good care of us, and some people in this book learned that the hard way. I gave that book a 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it and I recommend it. The next book I read was On Beauty by Zadie Smith. I posted a video a few weeks ago. I got to see Zadie Smith and meet her. She came to do a lecture at our local university, so I'll link that up here, that video, and you can see how beautiful she was in person. So I started reading this a few days before she came and finished it up, but it took me a long time to read this. It is quite large, 400 pages I believe, but over 400 pages. But it just took me so long to get through it. And she said this herself, she's not really a plot person, she's more of a character developer, and which I enjoyed, but it doesn't keep you turning the pages as much. So that made me slog through it a little bit more. This book follows a multiracial family that's involved in the world of academia. The dad is a professor and the daughter goes to his university, and their friends are other people that work at the university. And then this family becomes linked in several different ways to another family. Starts out with the dads are both professors in the same field, and kind of there's a bit of competition there. So some of the themes in this book are definitely class, race, and Black identity, and physical appearance, as the title would suggest. What is beauty, and what things in life are important. Basically, if I had to sum this up in one sentence, it would be an art history professor who's unable to appreciate the beauty in his own life, which is depressing, and it was kind of depressing. But I have to say, I enjoyed hearing Zadie Smith talk in person more than reading her book, and I don't know if I'm going to read her other books, to be frank. I don't know, it's just not really my style, but it did have some really important topics and good things to think about. And I gave that 3 out of 5 stars as well. Next, another book from the library is called A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. So this is a middle grade novel about a boy who is haunted by a tree monster in his dreams. You're not really sure if it's his dream or if it is real, because to this boy it's very real. It has a lot of pictures in it, and they're very dark. It's all black and white drawings, so they really add a lot to the story, which is very dark and foreboding. So the drawings really add a lot of that darkness and creepiness factor. So I really appreciated that. It was really interesting. It was a pretty quick read. I read it in a couple different sittings, but it actually made me quite emotional at the end. As much as I enjoyed it, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, I'm also glad it wasn't longer, because it didn't go into a super detailed plot or anything like that. It was a simple plot, and it carried it simply, but it was really engaging and a beautiful read. So then this is where my reading slump hit. Well, basically after I started reading On Beauty, and it took me about a week and a half or 2 weeks to read it, that's when I kind of got in a big slump. So I just picked something off my shelf, and one of the Book Riot Read Harder Challenge topics was a play, so I figured that would be something easy to read, and I had this one already on my bookshelf. So this is Salome, I think, but this doesn't have a accent on the front. But Salome and Other Plays by Oscar Wilde. I only ended up reading Salome, which was pretty short, but I read a play, so I'm counting it on that challenge. In the Bible, there's a story about when John the Baptist is he's in jail. There's this one point where the King Herod wants his daughter to dance for him. So she doesn't want to dance. He says, "I'll give you anything, up to half of my kingdom, if you'll dance for us at this fancy dinner." So she says, "Do you promise?" And he says yes. And then she goes to talk to her mom, and they ask for the head of John the Baptist, which Herod is reluctant to give because so many people loved him. And so, but he promised, so he has to behead John the Baptist, and it's very sad. Obviously in the Bible, John the Baptist is a very, well-loved person, and he was the person that told everyone that Jesus was the Messiah and that he was coming, so he's a very important person. Anyway, this play kind of follows Salome is the daughter, and it's a pretty short play. Basically, she meets John the Baptist, she tries to hit on him, and he isn't interested, and so she's kind of offended, and then the King Herod is actually like really creepy towards her. So then when he wants her to dance, it's kind of like, she really doesn't want to, but then he promises to give her anything she wants, and so she decides to behead John the Baptist. That's basically all. It was interesting to read such a well-known Bible story from a different character's perspective. There's a movie that was made in 1999 called Cookie's Fortune, which is about there's a town in the South that's putting on this play, and Julianne Moore and Glenn Close are in it, and I think that would be really interesting. So I might try and watch that movie and see what their take on the play was. So that's all I read in February. Let me know what you read in February, and if you have read any of these books, or if you're interested in reading any of them, and leave me a comment below, and subscribe if you are interested to hear more about the books I read. Thanks for watching, and see you later.